So today I thought I'd try something different. I want to talk today about a Virginia writer who's been around for quite a while. I'm referring to Edgar Allan Poe. I won't talk about any specific edition of his books, but just about any bookstore has a whole lot of Poe books, and as you know, you can also go to the library. Poe was born in Richmond in 1809. His mother died in childbirth, leaving him and his baby sister Rosalie as orphans. Poe was taken under the wing of a wealthy Richmond merchant named John Allan. And as he grew up in childhood, Allan took care of him and paid for his education, although Poe later came to resent Allan a good deal for not having fully adopted him. Poe's sister Rosalie was retarded and never got past the middle age of 8 or 10. One of the main episodes in Poe's childhood seems to have been his infatuation with a lady named Helen Stannard. He wrote his first, perhaps his first literary work, which is still considered pretty good. It's called To Helen, and it contains the verse, just to give you the flavor of it, "Lo, in yon brilliant window niche, how statue-like I see thee stand, the agate lamp within thy hand, ah, Psyche, from the regions which are Holy Land." That sounds fairly corny and romantic, but that was the style then, and Poe did it better than a lot of people. But his poetry is not so much what he's remembered for. He's remembered more for his fiction. He started on his fiction after college. First, he left Richmond. His protector, John Allan, sent him to the University of Virginia for a year. Poe got in so much trouble there that he was expelled, apparently for gambling and drinking. After that time, Poe tried going to West Point, which of course was a disaster, and then John Allan disowned him, and he went to live in Baltimore with his aunt, Mrs. Clem. She had been the sister of Poe's mother, and she had a daughter who was about 13 years younger than Poe, named Virginia. Poe dropped out of sight and spent several years in Baltimore. It's not clear what he was doing. Some critics suspect he was taking opium, but one thing is certain, he was writing a lot. To give kind of a feeling for the introspective quality that he had again during those years, here's a passage where he talks about what he liked to do. "To muse for long unwearied hours with my attention riveted to some frivolous device on the margin or in the typography of a book, to become absorbed for the better part of a summer's day in a quaint shadow falling aslant upon the tapestry or upon the floor, to lose myself for an entire night in watching the steady flame of a lamp or the embers of a fire," and so on. So he was a deep thinker then. At that time, this incidentally is part of one of Poe's grossest stories, a story called Berenice. In this story, a man marries his cousin, and the cousin falls into a kind of fit and is buried. But before she's buried, the narrator, whose name is Aegeus, had become obsessed by her teeth. And he's thinking about them, and he says, the teeth, they were here and there and everywhere, and visibly and palpably before me, long, narrow, and excessively white, with the pale lips writhing about them. I had no thoughts but for the teeth. For these I longed with a frenzied desire. I felt that their possession could alone ever restore me to peace in giving me back to reason. Now, at the culmination of that story, the narrator digs up the corpse of his dead wife, pulls out all her teeth, and then it's discovered that she wasn't really dead after all. So it's a fairly gross story. Aside from writing these sort of horror stories, Poe also wrote a number of detective stories. He liked having the image of being hyper-rational and very logical. It's sometimes said that he invented modern horror fiction and detective fiction. What his personal life is like is pretty hard to speculate. He married his 13-year-old cousin, Virginia, and it seems likely that he never actually had sex with her. He seems to have been more or less repelled by the physical plane. He died at the age of 40 after having returned to Richmond, being triumphantly welcomed. He took the packet boat up to Baltimore to get his Aunt Virginia to come live with him. At that point, he got drunk in Baltimore and was found dead in the street. A lot of people at the time, the immediate U.S. reaction to his death was this: Edgar Allan Poe is dead. He died in Baltimore the day before yesterday. This announcement will startle many, but few will be grieved by it. But as the years passed, Poe became something of a hero to many writers, particularly to the French poet Charles Baudelaire, who suggested that this should have been put on Poe's tomb. All of you who have eagerly sought to discover the laws of your being, who have aspired to the infinite, and whose repressed emotions have led to seek frightful relief, pray for him. Now his purified corporeal being swims among beings whose existence he foresaw. Pray for him who sees and who knows he will intercede for you. Thank you for being with me for another episode of Brain Food, and be sure to go out and read some books by Poe. I'm here for another